Senator Enock. What guidance are you seeking, Senator, for Kakamega?
Mr. Speaker, I have listened very painfully the difficulty the minister appears to be having. But listening to it and reading it together, listening to it and reading Article 94 of the Constitution, which speaks to the role of Parliament, it says, Mr. Speaker, in 94(5), that no person or body other than Parliament has the power to make a provision having the force of law in Kenya except under the authority conferred by this Constitution. Mr. Speaker, we have not come to Nairobi in this House to speak in vain. We do so under the provision of this Constitution, which I have read, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, is the minister suggesting that the Attorney General has the power to veto Parliament? This Parliament made a resolution.
Senator Boni, I'll give you an opportunity to ask a question.
No, I was asking for interpretation.
Senator Enock,
Mr. Speaker, I wanted you to guide us.
I can see your name on the dashboard. I'll give you an opportunity.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, clearly for my brother, my friend, my colleague, Waziri Mbadi, the shoe is clearly on the other foot. That's very clear. The shoe is on the other foot. Mr. Speaker, just riding on what Senator Khalwale is trying to ask, can Parliament, Mr. Speaker, can this Senate, your Senate that you preside over, Mr. Speaker, can it legislate in vain? Is it possible that senators will sit here, pass resolutions, and they just talk show, the AG seated in an office somewhere decides, no, this is not good enough? Mr. Speaker, the question is, so when the minister received that advisory opinion from the AG, when did he write to you, Mr. Speaker, to tell you that we have received, you made a resolution on this date, we have received an advisory opinion from the AG on this day, and so please act accordingly? Mr. Speaker, I will not belabor the point. The CS fought with me on this matter when he was pushing the agenda of former members of the National Assembly to be compensated. And in front of the Speaker, as I go to sit down, I have a message for the CS from one former member of Parliament from Gitui East, Honorable Mweu. He is still seated waiting for the day that this administration will live up to its word, that the things that had been done wrongly will be done right and people will get their rights under this administration. The Speaker, can your house legislate in vain?
So is that the question to me or to the Honorable CS?
The Speaker, it's just a clever way of getting you to be agitated because somebody is trying to say that you can sit on that chair, preside over a motion, a resolution, the Speaker, push ministries to sit down and come up with a solution to a problem, and then one person, just a stroke of the pen, says all that we have done is in vain. The question is to the CS, can this house, can any house of Parliament legislate in vain?
Senator, to inform who, Honorable? Whom do you want to inform?
Actually, it's the House.
Proceed.
Mr. Honorable Speaker, the CS has not given the right answer because, number one, this was not a motion, Honorable CS. A task force was formed, which included the Ministry of National Treasury and Planning, the Ministry of Devolution and ASAL, and the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. So, Mr. Speaker, an interagency task force on payment of honorarium and monthly pension to former councillors was formed so that also to go and negotiate with them. And they negotiated and they agreed on what should be paid. The interagency task force gave proposals, and the 3 CSs appended their signatures in this report that I will table to this House. Yeah? So the 3 CSs who appended signatures to the amount of money that was being paid to the councillors are 1 CS, National Treasury and Planning. Number 2, that was Ambassador Kulatan. Number 2, Honorable Eugene Wamarwa, who was the CS then of Ministry of Devolution and ASAL, and Honorable Simon Chelugui, who was the CS Minister of Labor and Social Protection. So it is a negotiated package and agreement which was to be provided. And they understand in the year 2022-2023, that is when their monies were to be put into the budget. So, Mr. Speaker, we are not talking of a motion, but a resolution which was communicated now to the clerk of the Senate, from National Treasury and Planning to the clerk of the Senate, and advising the Senate what the interagency task force agreed. And this is a property of the Senate, Mr. Speaker. So we are not talking of a motion passed by the House. It is a resolution from an interministerial task force. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to table this resolution to the Senate, so that as we discuss, this matter is not going to be discussed, and then we say today we are finished with the CS, but we must review this decision, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for giving me all these indulgences, Honorable Speaker.
Table. Senator from Mombasa. Honorable CS, just note down the questions. You respond them at one go.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Nakumbuka mwaka jana wakati kwa kamati ya fedha ya bunge hili, waziri wa zamani wa fedha na hazina alikuja mbele ya komiti wakati tunajadili budget policy statement, na akakomiti kwamba hizo pesa ambazo watakana kulipwa madiwani wa zamani zitawekwa katika bajeti ya mwaka 2023 24-25. Sasa je, ni sawa mawaziri waje katika bunge hili na kamati zake kutoa maelezo ama kutoa majibu ambayo hayalingani? Kwa sababu Profesa Njuguna Ndungu alikuwa ni waziri wa fedha na hazina kuu ya serikali ya Kenya Kwanza. Leo tuko na waziri Mbadi. Je, ni sawa mawaziri kuja na majibu tofauti katika bunge hili? Leo wanakuja wanasema hivi, kesho wanakuja wanasema vile. Asante.
Senator Boni.
Mr. Speaker, our brother Mbadi is a very experienced parliamentarian, and he knows that Parliament does not speak in vain. I leave that to his conscience. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, the former councillors of Nandi County, Uasin Gishu County, and Kakamega County came to see me formally, and they told me that the president had met them and made a commitment just before he won the election that he would ensure this promise by the Jubilee government would be implemented by the... No, that interministerial was during the Jubilee government. That he was aware of that task force, and that decision he would implement if elected. Since God has been very kind, President Ruto is now the president, and he committed himself to these councillors. Can the minister undertake, as the financial advisor to the president, to go and make the necessary consultations so that the promise of the president and the expectations of the former councillors converge? We pay our old people. After all, if we pay this 200 million, it's a form of financial stimulus. They will spend the money in public, and the economy will be vibrant in their villages, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Olekina.
Asante sana Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, ningependa kufahamu kutoka kwa Waziri wa Fedha. Je, ni lini jambo ambalo walizungumzia na wakakubaliana kama Waziri wa Fedha, Waziri wa Kazi, Labor, na pia there were 3 of them, walikuwa 3, na Waziri wa Ugatuzi, wakakubaliana kweli kwamba wanakwenda kusubmit ama kupeana cabinet memo ili pesa ambayo ilikuwa bilioni 2,600,816 iweze kuwekwa katika bajeti ya mwaka wa 2023 na 24 ili iweze kuwalipa councilors wa zamani ambayo walikuwa 11,909, na pia milioni 218 iweze kulipa councilors ambayo walifanya kazi zaidi ya term 3. Ni lini, je, ni lini mambo ilibadilika ambaye katika seneti hii? Mheshimiwa, najaribu kuongea Kiswahili kabisa ndio councilors waweze kuelewa. Ni lini hiyo ilibadilika ambaye seneti hii inaweza pronounce itself, sijui inaitwaje kwa Kiswahili, kujieleza kupitia namna mbili. Ya kwanza ni wakuwa na ile mkataba motion, ya pili ni wakipitisha sheria. Seneti hii ilipitisha mkataba ikasema ya kwamba hawa former councillors ambayo walikuwa ni 11,400 waweze kulipwa pesa. Tukazungumza, tukapiga mikutano hapa. Waziri wa Fedha ambaye ndiye alikuwa kabla ya rafiki yangu Mbadi kuja, alikuja katika kamati ya Labor. Alipotoka hapa, inakumbuka vizuri sana, ilikuwa Aprili tarehe 23. Tarehe 23 akatueleza ya kwamba hao wenyewe wamekubaliana wanakwenda submit cabinet memo ili hii pesa iwekwe kwenye bajeti. Je, ningependa kujua hii pesa iliwekwa kwa bajeti alafu ikarudi kaondolewa kwa sababu hawa ni watu ambao wamezeeka, hawana faida. Na ukijaribu kuangalia ni kwamba hao ndio wamefanya tuje hapa. Hao ndio walitengeneza. Kama si hao, ugatuzi ingeweza kuja. So, Mheshimiwa Speaker, ningependa kujua katika kweli ni lini jambo hili lilibadilika. Ya pili, nikienda kumalizia,
Honorable
Mheshimiwa,
you're entitled to only one supplementary question under our order paper. Under our standing orders.
Mheshimiwa Speaker, hiyo swali moja, Swahili ndio ngumu. Naomba tu nikubalie kwa sababu kama ningekuwa naeleza na Kizungu ingekuwa imeflow vizuri.
Conclude.
Mheshimiwa Mbadi ametueleza ya kwamba alipata ujumbe kutoka kwenye Attorney General ya kwamba hii jambo halifai kufanywa. Sheria. Mimi nauliza, wakati ile Mheshimiwa Ndongo alikuja kwenye kamati ya kazi ya Labor, hakuwa amezungumza na huyo Attorney General kumweleza kwamba mimi sasa nakwenda kule nishawishi, na badala kabla hawajapeleka hii mkataba wao katika cabinet, kwa sababu hao wenyewe walisema wakuwa 3 cabinet secretaries watapeleka joint memo, cabinet memo ndio hiyo hela iwekwe kwenye kwa nini kwenye bajeti. Ni lini hii ilibadilika? Ama ni ile mchezo ya paka na panya ambaye inakimbia hivi, leo tunasema tunapatia hawa, lakini kwa sababu hawana ile siasa, political clout, wanatupwa nje. Mheshimiwa Speaker, ningependa kujua kwa sababu maisha ya hawa former councillors ni maisha ambaye lazima tuwapiganie, kwa sababu leo hii Mheshimiwa Mbadi akisema ati tunabadilisha tuweke kama inua jamii, hiyo itakuwa ni discrimination. Kweli unawezaje kusema na inua jamii ya councillor nampa 1,200 na pia naenda kuinua jamii ya baba ya Ledamo unampatia shilingi 2,000? Hiyo kweli inawezekana? Hiyo kweli, je, hiyo ni ungwana? Asante.
Now, Honorable Senators, allow the Honorable CS to respond, because in his response, I believe he may even address some of the issues that are yet to be raised. Honorable CS, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to state categorically that it's not in my interest to deny former councillors what is rightfully theirs. What I'm emphasizing on is, yes, it is desirable to pay these former councillors. Many of them are suffering, having served this country and having been in public offices and respected personalities in their right in this country. But we must do it within the law. Now, I have been asked by Senator Wambua a few questions, I think about two. One, whether the House can act in vain. My answer is no. The House should not act in vain. Did we write to the Speaker?
Senator Eddy and Senator Fogarisha, kindly.
Did my office write to the Speaker on this matter or the opinion of the Attorney General? Unfortunately, I don't think we did. We didn't write to inform the Speaker. So the question here that has been asked is, there was a task force that was set up and the resolution of the House. First of all, let me start with the task force. Is the report of the task force binding? My understanding is no, it is not. Why? Because the Constitution, which Senator Boni Khalwale mentioned, provision number 94, or Article 94(5), says no person or body, including task forces, other than Parliament, has the power to make provision having the force of the law in Kenya, except under authority conferred by this Constitution or by legislation. I am yet to see the provision in our Constitution or any written law passed by this Parliament which has authorized a task force formed to approve payment to former councillors. If there is that provision, I would obey and pay. Make provision in our budget and pay, but there is none. So that task force remains a task force. Its report should be implemented procedurally, which has not. So up to now, there is no, out of the task force, which should have, a legislation should have flown automatically from the task force report to now anchor it in law, and that has not been done. Now, on a question by Senator Faki, why I have not respected or obeyed what former CS is committed to do. Unfortunately, I want to report to the Senate that yes, my predecessor, Honorable Yatani, or even Honorable Ndungu, probably made a commitment, but they didn't pay. The person who is paying now is myself. I cannot pay unless backed by the law. Because when now it will raise issues, I am the one accountable. I'm the one responsible. I cannot hide behind people who made commitments or intentions and didn't pay. So the paymaster now is myself. If they paid, I would have come here to report that they paid. But they didn't pay, and they left it for me to pay, and I'm checking the legal framework, and I don't see it. A question was asked about the Attorney General's powers. My reading of Article 156 is this, that the Attorney General is a principal legal advisor to the government. Now, being the principal legal advisor, I take his advice or her advice very seriously. And the Attorney General gave advice on 8th of May 2023 on this, and that advice has not been vacated or changed. Senator Boni Khalwale has asked me about, again, Parliament legislating in vain. I want to say again, Parliament cannot legislate in vain. The only thing that I said is, and we have been in this House with Senator Boni Khalwale for a while. We know the power and the force that a motion has and a bill, an act of parliament. A motion usually, and by the way, this has been the legislative practice, that if you want a bill to pass easily, you craft it in a motion. That motion is debated, and once you succeed with the motion, then you follow through by generating a bill to actualize your motion. How I wish that Senator Wambua, who raised this matter, brought it to the House through a motion, followed through by bringing a legislation to anchor whatever the House resolved into law to allow for payment. If that is done, I will definitely obey the legal framework. As to the President's commitment to pay the councillors, I want to again read Article 94 of the Constitution, that no person, and there is no exclusion here, no person or body, whether President or anybody else, other than Parliament, has the power to make provision having the force of law in Kenya, except under authority conferred by the Constitution or by legislation. I am yet to see where power has been given to the President to give authority for payment that is not anchored in law. So what I would advise is if the President initiate through the executive a legislative proposal which would now give me the legal basis upon which this payment can be made, I will obey. Senator Olekina, Senator for Narok County, since when did we start? In fact, it was in Kiswahili, but I'm trying to translate it into English, that an agreement by 3 CSs be changed. I am not changing the task force report. What I'm saying is that task force report has made recommendations. Those recommendations now should be anchored in law to allow me to make payment to former councillors. And when did this change? It has not changed. The task force recommendation still stands, but we have to now actualize it. Did Professor Njuguna Ndungu speak to the Attorney General before coming before the Senate? I wish I knew. I have not consulted him to know whether he did, but I thought he must have consulted, because for the Attorney General to give opinion on 8th of May 2023, that opinion must have been sought from the National Treasury. And the CS then was Professor Njuguna Ndungu. So I am very sure he must have, in one way, communicated with the Attorney General. On the Inua Jamii, I was not saying that we pay the former councillors this gratuity, pension or honorarium through Inua Jamii program. What I mentioned is that we are working with the line ministry to make sure that these former councillors, those who deserve to be enrolled under Inua Jamii program, are enrolled in the normal way to get support like any other qualified Kenyans, including those who have not served as councillors. Thank you.
Now, honorable senators, we need to make progress on this very weighty matter. And I know that if I'm to give an opportunity to any of you, there will be no bigger departure from what has already been said by the senators who've spoken before. Now, you will note that there is a willingness to pay from the executive, right from the president to the ministry. The biggest obstacle that has been observed from the response by the Honorable CS is lack of legal framework. And therefore, Honorable Senators, allow me to, pursuant to Standing Order 1, Standing order number 1, refer this matter to the Committee of Labour, working together with the Ministry of Finance and the Office of the Attorney General, within 60 days to come up with a legal framework within which we can actualize the recommendations of the task force so that the councillors are paid their due. If that's find favor, we will rest it at that. So, Honourable CS, this matter has now been referred to the Labour Committee, which will work with you and the Office of the Attorney General to come up with a legal framework within which the former councillors can get their dues. We'll leave it at that. We will now move to the second question directed to, yes.
Honourable Speaker, thank you for your guidance, and I'm okay with your guidance. And I've realized the lacuna where it is. So, Mr. Speaker, I was asking, is it possible also to include the Committee on Budget and Finance? Because it is very critical on this matter. That is the committee that can also be able to get CS Mbadi anytime they want to meet him. Otherwise, Labour does not know the corners of Treasury more than the Committee on Budget and Finance. And also it is a finance matter, Honourable Speaker, so it is better also that committee to be involved.
Very well. In fact, 3 committees will work together with the CS Treasury and the Office of the Attorney General, the Labour Committee, JLAC, and Finance and Budget. And we need that report to be laid before the Senate within 60 days. The earlier, the better. We move to the second question. Question number 25. Senator Boni, proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask question number 25 as in the order paper. And Mr. Speaker, allow me to congratulate the Minister for the candid manner in which he has handled this matter of gross national importance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, could the Minister provide a list of programs in Kenya relating to education, food security, governance that were being implemented by the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, at the time of freezing of foreign assistance from the United States of America? B, Mr. Speaker, what is the total funding requirement for each of the said programs, and could the Cabinet Secretary specify the amount of funds that USAID was projected to provide in the financial year 2024-25? C, what interim measures has the government put in place to address the funding gap that has emerged as a result of the freeze of foreign assistance from the US to ensure continuity of the critical services? And finally, D, could the Cabinet Secretary also outline the government's long-term plans to reduce reliance on foreign aid and to ensure sustainability in financing for the critical programs in sectors such as education, health, food security, and governance? I thank you.
Cabinet Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me also to reciprocate the magnanimity of Senator Boni Khalwale by saying that I also appreciate the Senator for being proactive in this matter, not to wait until there are challenges out of this freeze of funding to now ask questions, being proactive and asking well in advance. Since the senators read the question, I don't want to read